We don't just talk about the news, we talk to those making news. This is the Steve Malzberg Show.
This is the deal, and it's not a good one. So these people who hold themselves out to be patriots are not. They're nothing more than domestic terrorists. And I think that we are a country that people should follow the law. And what went up in Mesquite is not very good. I repeat, what went on up there is domestic terrorism. Okay, domestic terrorism.
All right, he wanted to make sure he said it right and that he was heard loud and clear. Welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. We're joined right now by Adam O'Neill. He's a reporter for RealClearPolitics, and he's done a great series of articles on Harry Reid, how he got to be the Harry Reid we all know, and where he came from, and his problems along the way, and his problems today. Hello, Adam. Great job, by the way.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me on, and thank you.
It's my pleasure. All right, before we get to all that, let me just start maybe backwards. And these remarks that Clive Bundy is a domestic terrorist, and what went on up there, and this has nothing to do with his racist remarks. This was before then. That what went on up there was domestic terrorism, and he had it in his notes. He wanted to make sure he got it right. He said those words on purpose, and then he takes to the floor almost every day, the floor of the Senate, the majority leader of the U.S. Senate, and calls the Koch brothers, who have given hundreds of millions of dollars in charity to build hospital wings and kids with cancer, calls them un-American. I mean, I've never seen anything like this from a man in his position.
Well, I can't speak for the history of the entire U.S. Senate, but I do know that Harry Reid, he identifies himself as a boxer. That's what he was growing up, and he's known to take a tough approach to politics, and he's likened it to boxing himself many times. So the harsher rhetoric is something that's always been part of his political identity, and I think that's something that continues today, whether it's with the Koch brothers or at the Bundy Ranch.
And one more before we get to your piece specifically, and that of course is what he said about Mitt Romney. That he's been told, Mitt Romney has not paid income taxes for 10 years. I mean, that was, talk about whole cloth. Another thing that he said, that these stories from Republicans putting forth problems with Obamacare, these horror stories, they're made up of whole cloth, and not to, and it goes on and on and on. I mean, remember when the government was shut down and Dana Bash of CNN asked him, why not pass the continuing resolution, the portion, the piecemeal bill that the House passed to keep the National Institute of Health open so you could say, even if it saves one kid with cancer. And he said, why would I want to do that? I have people who are unemployed, laid off back home. They have their own problems. I mean, this guy is so full of gaffes, if you will, that any other politician on the Republican side would have been forced to resign.
Right. What a lot of people in Nevada have told me is that Reid is an extremely divisive figure in the state. Half of the state, the Democratic Party, absolutely loves him. He's the most powerful politician in Nevada, Democratic or Republican, and half of the people in Nevada love him, and the other half feel very, very strongly in the opposite way because of things like this. Harry Reid is often very clear about how he feels about these divisive issues. And that puts him in an interesting political position in the state.
All right, let's talk about his latest problems, and that is, the daughter or the granddaughter, the gifts that he purchased from her for staff, supposedly, with campaign contributions that he did not only once, it turned out he did it twice, tens of thousands of dollars. And as you point out in your piece, that's not the first time there have been family issues with Harry Reid.
Right. So this is what brought on us writing this longer piece was last month news broke Senator Reid had spent $31,000 on jewelry from his granddaughter's company. And we compared it to the rest of the FCC records, and that's 7 times as much as he spent in the same category of gifts for donors. He spent 7 times as much on his granddaughter alone than he did for all other vendors combined. And when that came out, and we did a follow-up and broke news that he had also his granddaughter had also received donations for her theater company from a lot of the same people that were donating, or the same people or organizations that were donating to Senator Reid's campaign. we decided to take a deeper look through the history, the public record, local journalists, former and current politicians, and get a better sense of Reed's power and of his finances.
Yeah, and you certainly did. So again, not the only time, because there's been accusations of this kind of a family involvement with Harry Reid in the past. Right.
Like I said, he's the most powerful politician in Nevada. Democrats, from what I've been told by a number of sources, they don't really have primaries in Nevada, and that's often because whoever Harry Reid chooses is going to be the person who receives money and support from the Nevada Democratic Party. And this relates to his son, because his son, Roy Reid, is the only one of his 5 children who ran for elected office. He ran unopposed in every single election he's ever been in. And a local politician even became interested in one race and immediately pulled out after she found out that Roy would be running for that seat.
Yeah, I mean, that's just another example. So here's a man who's been in politics for over 40 years. As you point out, he's raised tens of millions of dollars, but probably a lot, much more over the years in political contributions. He's got all this power in Nevada. He has all this power in the U.S. Senate. How did he ascend to this from, a boxer, an attorney? How did he get to where he is? He's certainly not dynamic. He's certainly not flamboyant. He certainly doesn't inspire me. I mean, to hear him talk now, it's like, if I want to go to sleep, I'll put on a Harry Reid tape.
Well, what's interesting about Reid is that he's held a lot of the positions in public office, but he also simultaneously continued to work in the private sector. When he was a city attorney for Henderson, he did that part-time. When he was a local legislator in Nevada, that was also part-time. And when he was on the Gaming Commission, that was part-time. So he had about 14 years of working in the private sector, some of that just private sector, some of it government work. And it was in the 1960s and 70s was a good time for a politically connected guy in Nevada to be working in the private sector. He either was paid in or bought a lot of land early, and he's made money from those land deals, and some of it has caused some smoke. There's never been any illegal activity proven, but there's certainly been a lot of smoke around some of the land deals. But that's primarily where most of his wealth came from, was the luck of buying land in Las Vegas right before it matured in value significantly.
And doesn't he, if I'm not mistaken, does he not live in the Watergate Hotel?
I believe he's in the Ritz-Carlton.
The Ritz-Carlton, okay.
Condo.
Yeah.
He has a condo. He has a one-bedroom condo in the Ritz-Carlton.
So is he in danger of any kind with these latest accusations and they're more than accusations. I mean, he's admitted to them with the gifts to the granddaughter. I mean, ethically speaking, or otherwise, can anything happen to him?
I believe the FEC is currently investigating the granddaughter's jewelry and how the campaign labeled that, because when they initially labeled that they had purchased jewelry, on the FEC filing it says Ryan Elizabeth, and it left off the last name Reid, which is sort of what drew some red flags for some people. And John Ralston, the reporter who first broke the story, he said that for a day, Reid's campaign wouldn't confirm that it was Ryan Elizabeth Reid. They would just say it's Ryan Elizabeth. They failed to confirm that. So we're going to be keeping an eye out to see what the FEC eventually says about that. But what a lot of people in Nevada told me is that in Reid's office, their view is it's been a long career. This isn't a pattern. These are just random events that people are saying are a pattern. But a lot of people in Nevada said that this
must be from the Democrats who love him, right?
Right. No, this is what Reid's office told me. They said this isn't what this isn't a pattern. These are just random events. But people in Nevada said, there is kind of a pattern here. He'll do something bold, something almost illegal, or something where he's in an ethical gray area. There'll be some media fuss. He'll step back, and then a few months later or a couple years later, another situation will arise.
Yeah.
In 2011, for instance, he got some criticism for lobbying on behalf of his son to become city attorney. which it's now a full-time job, pays $200,000 a year, and the son hadn't met the qualifications. And there was some criticism there, some accusations of cronyism, and he kind of stepped back from that. And now it's back in the news again, this time with him helping his granddaughter.
Yeah. Well, I know you will keep an eye on it. And again, great piece. People go to RealClearPolitics.com and check out the piece by Adam O'Neill on Harry Reid, and check out the whole site. Great talking to you, Adam. I look forward to next time. Thank you, sir.
Great. Take care. Have a good one.
You too. Adam O'Neill, ladies and gentlemen. Interesting, very interesting, to say the least. It's interesting. Piece of work. But look, and then as we alluded to in an earlier segment, you also have Harry Reid calling Barack Obama, he used the N-word, Negro, at one point. That was brought up earlier in the show by Ron Christie. We played a soundbite of him saying that on CNN. But as long as you're a Democrat, you're protected and insulated. Give Me 5 is next. Don't go away.